right, everybody, welcome once again to youtube.com/PWP Nation right here with Kevin Castle of many people might know him from the Don Tony and Kevin Castle show, but now he is doing it on his own. He's got Castle Chronicles, and he's one of the top wrestling podcasters of all time. All time, baby. Kevin, what's up, man? How you doing? Thanks for joining me on the show.
Good, thanks. It's the nicest intro I've gotten in a while. I appreciate that. Thank you. Thanks. Good to be here, Jay.
I'm a hype man extraordinaire, brother. We're both here from the East Coast. I'm sitting here in Jersey. You're from New York, man, and I know you've been in this game for a long time. So, if people don't know who you are, I'm pretty sure anyone who's listening likely does. But if people don't know who you are, if they're not familiar with your background and what you do as a wrestling broadcaster, tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I've been a fan of wrestling since 1979, since I'm 11 years old. I mean, I've been consistent fan, never took breaks, never, I'm not that into it anymore. Never stopped being into it. That was the main thing, is I was a consistent fan. Only two things I've been a consistent, never stop, never waver fan of is baseball, New York Mets. And we know how that story goes. But pro wrestling, even during the down years, the 90s, the Diesel years, the Double J years, the Vince Trial years, I never left. I mean, I know a lot of people, even my brother, who's also a podcast, I'll mention him a little bit later on, my younger brother, John, who was, kind of 3 years behind me, kind of tagged along, became a wrestling fan too. He's taken some breaks from watching wrestling. A lot of my friends who I went to the shows with did the same. But just for me, I was always a consistent fan. I just never wavered. I was a diehard WWE fan, WWF at the time, as you know, MSG, Nassau Coliseum, Meadowlands, Continental Arena. Went to all of them, even out of the state. We went to Connecticut, New Haven Coliseum. Went to territory spot shows too, as well. I mean, I was a fan of all wrestling, Florida Championship, Continental Wrestling, Mid-South, Bill Watt, you just name it, AWA. I mean, if I was 12 years old and could fly to Minnesota by myself, I would have went there to see Nick Bockwinkel versus Rick Martel. So that's how much of a fan I was into it. Just stayed a fan, always like a super fan, always knowledgeable, go-to guy. Anybody had a question about wrestling always came to me. Attitude Era came and went. Early 2000s roll in, and I'm calling hotlines at the time. You remember wrestling hotlines, Jay, right?
Hell yeah, absolutely.
So I call wrestling hotlines 2000, 2001, 2002, and I just call them from my house, just to listen to it, see if I can get scoops on news and stuff. They were free, not like back in the 80s where we had Coach Kurt and Blackjack Brown used to charge money, $3 a minute or whatever, and I was under my parents' regime back then. Now I'm a grown man. I'm on my own. During this period of time, and I call these lines, and I call a particular line, Anthony from I guess it was Howard Beach at the time, or Anthony from Middle Village. Turns out to be the guy everyone knows today is Don Tony, Anthony de Blasi. He wasn't Don Tony back then, but so I called him, and I always found his line to be better than the other ones. There was Iron Mike, there was Captain Ivan, there was Dominic Valente. Just some names that people might know who are old school here might not have ever heard of before. But those were the lines to call. And I always found Anthony to have the best cadence, best voice, just someone I could kind of relate to, another kind of fellow Italian, sounded around my age, talked a lot about going to MSG or Queens, Ridgemont Grove Arena, I think it was, with his grandmother. So it reminded me of me, going to things my father. So I would hear him tell stories. I mean, I could relate to this guy more than these other guys. So one time more than one time, there was always a feature where you can leave a message on the machine, the voice box, voicemail at the time, where you can leave a question or if you have a comment. I left a couple of questions, couple of comments, and one day he had said live on the show, answered my question, says, Kevin Castle, if you're hearing me, don't leave it, call on the private message and leave your phone number. I got a possible proposition for you. So he called me and he invited me to come on the show and, do a recording. And it was for a few hundred people. It wasn't like some big giant audience back then, but there was a dedicated hotline audience. There was no online, no audio shows. He had a website. He had been doing it for a few years before I had ever called. And I called him. We got along good on the phone. At the time, we got along famously. And, he's like, oh, you want to come on? And I never thought I was going to be a reoccurring character or guest or whatever. I thought I'd come on, talk wrestling. I'm out. So I went on and, again, got along great. Got good feedback from the people who would leave messages. Oh, I have this guy on again or stuff like that. And just got along good with him. I mean, the ultimate decision maker of that would have been him anyway. So then just got on the hotline, became a staple mate of the hotline. I could say 2003, 2004, something like that. Then progressing, audio shows come into play. Not necessarily computer. I was still doing stuff via telephone, cordless phone for the longest time. And he would record the audio shows, then post them up, then progress online. Then we morph into this thing called the Minority Report, Minority Roundtable with several more people, Joey 924. So I want to give the accurate story, if you don't mind,
Yeah, please
because
do. Please do.
some people have never been credited over the years, and it's kind of ridiculous. Joey 924 was a guy. There was a guy named Smoked Out, another guy named Black Moses. His name was David, and those guys played a role too. I mean, no doubt, in the early incarnations of what I was doing, and gave me a break and stuff like that. They didn't go on to be known or anything. Some of them stayed in, some of them dipped out. But Anthony was part of that crew too, and we were called the Minority Report, Minority slash Roundtable. It's like five guys. Now you can imagine, you're a solo act. I don't know if you ever did a show with a partner before, even another person on the show. But try doing a show, an audio show with five people, and trying to get talk time, man. It was rough. But that lasted about 2 years. But there was times where me and Joey 924, without Anthony would do his own thing, would interview people: Diamond Dallas Page, Doug Basham, Danny Basham from the Basham Brothers, Rob Conway, Julie Hart, Bret Hart's ex-wife when she was writing a book. We interviewed a lot. Jimmy Valiant, Boogie Woogie Man, interviewed a lot of people. So that was me and Joey 924 got that, side thing, because I guess I had the best wrestling historian perspective, and Joey was kind of in charge. So I was the guy who did the interviews with him at the time. Anthony, now Don Tony, decides to break away from that group. He wants to do something on his own. He sees the future, and it wasn't called podcasting. It was called, of course, audio, radio, internet radio, audio shows, wrestling online. We posted online. This is the way it's going to be done. And he had a vision. He was definitely a forerunner in that, no doubt. I'll never take that credit away from him. And called me again, private phone call to me, said, listen, out of all the guys, I think me and you are the best team. We got the best chance of doing something. Breakaway. I have a vision for what we're going to do. We're advancing, leave this stuff behind. I already poured five guys talking on the show, talking over each other. It'll just be two guys talking over each other. So, yeah, so that, again, a call to me, he made, and we talked about it. And I says, leaving those guys, I know they were going to be mad and everything. And they were. But Don Tony's like, you want to stay and just do this for a little audience, or you want to expand and make this a bigger thing and a bigger reach? And I said, no, okay, let's do it. He goes, equal billing, call it, like I said, it became the Don Tony and Kevin Castle show. We were Anthony and Kevin then. But I've always been Kevin Castle, doing my job as a booker and for concerts and clubs here in New York since 1993. I've always been Kevin Castle. So I decided to take that name. I was Kevin from Sheepshead Bay before that, from where I used to live in my old Brooklyn neighborhood. And he was Anthony from Middle Village. He became Don Tony. I became Kevin Castle on air for that show. And Don Tony Kevin Castle show was born, I'd say, around like 2007-ish, I would say.
Wow. Yeah,
Officially
man.
launched 2007, 2008. Before, only other guy who documented was around then, that we know of, and credit to Jason Solomonster.
Yeah. Right,
He
right,
was
right.
around then. We always call each other OGs, and he says it to me all the time. I said that to him the other day when he hit his 700th episode. And I think we're around that too, or we were around that. Of course, like, when we'll get to it, me and DT aren't together anymore, but we hit over the 600 mark or something like that, close to 700. I'm not sure of the exacts, but it's not like, you get an Academy Award for this or anything.
Yeah,
But
of course.
everyone makes a big deal if you're off by a couple of shows. Um, like it means anything.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's just, it's props in a small base community. It's not like, props like, we work for curing COVID, but some people take podcasting too seriously, and we'll talk about that. But
Totally.
so we broke away and we did our own thing, and then really things started to take off. I would say our best years, absolutely, 2012, 13, 14, 15, we were on fire. 2016, 15 or 16, I think it was 15 or 16, we made Rolling Stones top wrestling podcasts, and we were sandwiched in between Steve Austin and Chris Jericho, which was fantastic. I mean,
Amazing.
Yeah, a ego boost for me, and I think it did mean a little bit more to me. It meant something to Anthony too. He can downplay it, but it meant something because there were people who didn't get listed who were not happy and very upset, not mad at us, but mad that they weren't even in consideration. I think some people got overlooked, and there were some people on the list that not even sure how they made it, but I think our due diligence and the downloads, and Anthony worked hard to get us out there at that time. Like I said, we were getting along famously, and the audience really connected to us. We were loved and hated at the same time, or loved and hated. We had our detractors and enemies. That's because we were so outspoken back then and very brash and stuff. And I won't say young because me and Anthony were in our mid 40s back then. So it's like, we're in our early 50s now. So, I wouldn't say young and brash. I'll just say we were brash. We were just two New York attitude guys, a lot of passion. I'm sure Anthony would agree with me on that. And we just kind of,
Before you continue, hold on real quick, Kev. Before you
sure,
continue, I just pulled up the Rolling Stone article, and I want to read the excerpt here that they have.
sure,
And I see the list is slightly different from what you described. Maybe it's just because the way they have it online. But
sure,
here's what they said. Hardly anybody breaks down what's going on in wrestling as well as Don, Tony, and Kevin Castle, and that's why so many people tune in and week out. But there's more to it than just good talk and knowing about wrestling. These guys are funny as hell and blend plenty of random pop culture references into their show, so it never feels like you were listening to a couple of insiders talking about wrestling. They are fans that know their shit, and every episode is entertaining because of that. Now, that ends quote. And I just have to say that I agree with that 100% because I did listen to your show around that 2013, 2014 era. And then I started to really branch out into a lot of other podcasts when I realized, Taz had a
sure.
show and Steve Austin, Chris Jericho, Jim,
Mhm.
like all these shows just started popping up. So I started just trying everything out. So I stopped becoming a regular listener. But I 100% agree with what they're saying because even with talking to you on Twitter over the past couple of years, I'd say you kind of are able to work in a lot of the other aspects of pop culture and life and
Mhm.
whatnot into your wrestling coverage. And that's important. And that's something that stood out to me about your show that Rolling Stone was completely on point about.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, they were accurate. I was very happy with that. And I said, I think it meant a little bit more to me, probably because I'm in the music business and I never thought I'd get in Rolling Stone from a
True.
wrestling podcast.
Right.
All the shows and big bands I work with and management teams and booking agencies that I've worked with. And I got in through wrestling. It's crazy. Something that I love, that it was never a job. And in the beginning, again, there was no debate or dispute about it. We made no money. Anthony put out money, to do the shows. It costs money to do these shows and stuff. But then, at some point, you hope something comes back. And we only started making money on the show, honestly, about maybe 5, 6 years ago. And thanks to another podcaster who very underrated in our community, but very known. Maybe of Wrestling Soup, of course.
Sure.
And
Yeah, absolutely.
Anthony Missionary Thomas, who was probably one of the best guys in our profession, if you want to call it, in our
Yes,
community.
I'll put him over. Such a good guy. I know him personally as well for the last few
Yeah,
years. Super good
great,
guy. Yeah.
great guy. Anything you need help, Mish, I have an audio pro. Not afraid of competition. Not a guy who's paranoid when another
Right.
podcast says someone's trying to take something away from me. Mish is a giver, and I think sometimes to a fault. Because he's a good guy, good Midwestern guy, very smart, very technically sound, and again, one of the unheralded heroes of our community. And I say that 100% meaning it. He has been there for me, during sources. And again, we'll get to it because there was an ending to, unfortunately, my partnership with Anthony. And Mish has always never wavered in being a friend to everybody, not a side taker, and certainly would not disparage anybody that he considers a friend, and knows to mind his P's and Q's and knows when to butt in and say something. So that's what I like about him. And again, I think the fact that he wasn't a New Yorker is a very good thing. Forget
Definitely.
it. Be a different
Uh,
story if he was a jaded New Yorker. But yeah, so he's great, and he was very helpful in me and DT going to uh, Patreon and Discord, which wasn't a thing when we started. It started
right.
to become a thing. Mish was another forerunner who saw the future of, listen, if you don't have advertisers or getting money from that way away, here's a way for podcasters to make money. Call them donations. to pay the bills and maybe put some little extra in your pocket for all the effort and years that you put in. Because, dude, went many years. I think we went like 10 years before we might have made a dime. I mean, I know I did. I mean, every now and then you get a donation to the show, and hey, you guys, a fan who had the means would say, hey, I want you and Anthony go out to dinner or split this, or whatever. That would happen every now and then. That was nice, but few and far between. And we were there, very dedicated. Anthony worked very hard as well too behind the scenes. Again, he was the forerunner of this. He had invited me to come along, so I think he would always have probably done this, even if I didn't say yes to that partnership back in the day. How it would have went or who would have been the Kevin Cat, who knows? But
Mhm.
he didn't really get along with the other guys who were on the round table and didn't have a good parting of the ways. I did, and only didn't have a good parting of the ways because I left them for greener pastures, which
Right.
everybody always gets a little upset about, even though it's not nothing personal. That's definitely business. That's never personal. Because I would have stayed on roundtable and interview wrestlers for forever for fun, but I was getting older, and I'm also the oldest in this equation, by the way. I'm older than Anthony by about a year and a half or 2 years. So again, I was looking at the big picture for myself. I never took this as a job that I relied on for money or anything until short time ago. Before, as you know, COVID came. We could talk about
Yeah.
that and wiped a lot of
Totally.
shit out. Shit is still not back in the music and club industry, but so anyway, again, we went and did Discord, Patreon, special shows. That's where I formed Castle Chronicles as a side thing for fans, a special thing, because everyone always wanted a solo show from me. Don Tony had always done a show called Breakfast with Blasi for over a decade, so he always had a solo means show. I never really wanted one. I was always a partnership guy. Even now, I'm a guy who likes to play off of another person. I know you do a solo show, Jason, JD, all you guys. That's good for you. For me personally, and I know Mish agrees with me on this. He's this good way too. We're a duo. We like doing the duo thing, point counterpoint. It just works for certain. I'm like a tag team wrestler. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's
Gotcha.
the best way to describe it to fans who are listening, who might say, "No, Kev, I heard you on your own. You're fine. You're good." It's not that I don't think I'm fine or good. It's just that I like the back and forth. I like the debate. I like especially point counterpoint. That's what made me and Don Tony successful. I think sometimes we don't even realize why people like that so much because we were very different people outside, but that was why it worked. Is that we weren't, oh yes, I agree. Yes, I have no different point. I like Roman Reigns. He hates Roman Reigns. He likes this wrestler. I don't like that wrestler.
Right.
We wouldn't be mean to each other, not on the air at least. Wouldn't be mean spirited to each other, to people. We would have fun with it and get a laugh out of it and stuff. So we would make jokes, and when Rolling Stone references humor, we would make fun of everything, and we would always make fun of ourselves. We were self-deprecating, and I think people like that we would make fun of ourselves. Don Tony is always willing to crack on himself. I was willing to do that too. Like we're just two idiots, I would say, from Queens, two grizzled middle-aged men who just happened to be very good at being wrestling historians and being wrestling enthusiasts. I mean, no different from the fans who come at us, and a fan, how fans are, Jay, because you do a podcast, and it's almost like fans are waiting to stump you or tell you something that you don't know so they can one up on you. And not even just to be a dick, but everyone wants to be right. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? Everybody
Yep.
wants to be right. Don Tony, you got that date wrong by one date. And it's like, okay, dude, it was the day before. You got us. You win. You're better than it's a crazy thing with wrestling fans, man. They love that kind of thing to be pinpoint accurate with shit. Like if you ask me what date did you start, I don't even know. 2007, 2000, something like that. I don't know what date it was. I
Mhm.
know the date like my first kid is born or something, but the date of my first podcast, man, I have to research that. I'm sorry. It's not that it's not that important to me, but I have other things on my mind. But I love podcasting. I've had a blast doing it. I didn't like the way some things went down. Some things behind the scenes are very petty and ridiculous, especially for people my age. I would even say to myself, my father deal with stuff like this at 52 years old. And again, if there's not really a big financial stake in it, you kind of even wonder why you do it. And I say, oh, I remember why I do it because I love it. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? I love
Yeah.
wrestling. Wrestling's a big part of why. Well, I told you before why I do these things. I'll go on. I'm not one of those paranoid people who's like, oh, why do they want me on a podcast? They want to rub for me. I'm glad if anything that I can do, if I mean anything to anybody, I can come on board and talk wrestling and meet and make friends, which is what I did in the club business, which was why I'm always employable in the club business and I haven't burned any bridges. Ask anybody who knows me.
Mhm.
Same thing with podcasting. Ask Jason Solomon, ask JD, ask Conrad about me. Oh, Kev Cass is a good dude. I've just because I have a problem with one person doesn't mean I have a problem with 100 people. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah.
And same thing, that don't make your problems mine. It's like, thank God people are smart enough to know, oh, these two guys don't get along anymore, but the way he's good to me, I'm good to him. And I feel the same way. I don't like people tell me who I can like or can't like. I left that behind in junior high school, but I get along with everybody. Like I said, I've guested on so many podcasts. I mean, I can't even tell you. And it's always been fun. It's never, I know, John, come on, talk. That's why I told you before, I'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. And, so the best thing I would say about podcasting is loving the subject matter. If you start hating wrestling and you don't like it anymore, and you see a lot of bitterness in posts on Twitter where you can't even believe they're actually fans. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
Yeah.
they literally hate. I hate the WWF. I hate wishing death on Vince McMahon. I'm like, nah, man. Wrestling shouldn't unhinge you. Wrestling should make you passionate. It can make you think things. It should bring out emotion. But for you to be upset and your day is ruined because someone was released who they weren't utilizing, that's a little bit too much. And I'm the biggest fan going, but Wesley Blake being released is not going to ruin my day. You know what
Exactly.
I'm
It's not
saying?
like yeah, and we've been through these releases, and
Oh
we'll
yeah,
I want to talk more about the split
sure.
of your show, but just to touch on that point, the reaction, the overwhelming emotional reaction last week when WWE did their normal house cleaning that they've done for years after WrestleMania. This is what sports teams do. This is what happens in the entertainment industry in general. You have to move on. Sometimes an actor or an actress stops moving the needle. People stop watching the movies.
Mhm.
They start to suck. It happens in sports. The basketball player can't score anymore. The football running back can't get it in the end zone anymore. The shortstop can no longer make the throw to first base, and they have to be replaced. Now, a lot of the overly emotional reactions sometimes get to me because I don't understand how you can't look at this from a business perspective and and like kind of just think critically about what WWE's stake in the game is here. It's not always about employing someone for 30 years of their lives. It's about doing what's best for your business and potentially that employee. Because believe it or not, Kevin, you could probably agree with me on this. Sometimes getting let go or getting fired or getting released is actually good for the person that's getting let go, fired, or
Right.
released.
No, definitely. Listen, again, I've been in the club business for a long time. I have built the ship, gone down with the ship a few
Yeah.
times. The way I got the name Kevin Castle, I ran the club Castle Heights from 1992 to 2002. They had to build it, they had to shut it down for 10-year run. Our run was up, and you move on and you go and do other things. Sometimes things are not in your control. Listen, I can tell you, even the last podcast I was on that I'm known for, that I'm talking about now, I didn't want to leave, but sometimes you don't have a choice in the matter, or someone else is dictating your path, whether wrong or right, or being, acting self-righteous or trying to be a martyr. There's different sides to every story. Splits happen, just like people who you see are the perfect couple and they're dating. Oh, you guys are so cute together, so good together. What happened? We just drifted apart, and it happens wherever, and it happens with relations in personal. It happens in partnerships. Happens to teammates on the ball field who just aren't connecting anymore, and someone's got to get traded. You've seen that too. You follow sports, Jay, and
Of
sometimes
course.
people getting traded. You hear behind the scenes later, we had to trade one of these guys. They weren't getting along in the locker room. Oh, used to be boys. Well, we're not anymore. What happened? Misunderstanding, miscommunication. It happens to everybody. So that's why I'm shocked, unless you're very young and you haven't experienced disappointment or getting fired yet, or getting furloughed, or experiencing those life things that we all do once you're well past the age of 21. I
Mhm.
can understand a 16 or 17-year-old going, I don't understand. I thought, my parents always told me, you work hard, you're loyal, you're dedicated, you show up on time, you get compensated, and you have a job. But what they don't tell them is the downside of that, and that shit happens, and that life isn't fair. And yes, you should be told that by about age 10, but some people don't tell people that. Some people coddle their children, they don't tell them anything like that. They learn it from a stranger, or they learn it from when they get fired. Why they get fired? We're having cutbacks, but that's not fair. What can I tell you? I'm out of money. You don't know what is going on, or someone just, someone's out, and it could be you. And when it's you, it's overly dramatic. You know why? Because it's you. But when it's somebody else, there's an old saying, Jay. Two people have a heart attack. They're in the waiting room of the hospital, and they're talking to each other. And one says, "You had a heart attack?" You're like, "Yeah, me too." How about you? Mine was a major one. Oh, yours is probably a minor one. They go, well, what's the difference of mine and yours? The major one is because it happened to me. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
Yours is minor because it happened to you. I don't know you. I care about mine's a big deal. But
Yep, yep.
again, that's how people take it. And when one of their favorites, like Mickey James, I saw today, we could talk about what happened with her today with the trash bag thing. I don't know if you saw the story.
Yeah. Have you ever seen that before? Is that something that you've ever
Yes.
seen? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. It's happened. I worked for a company. I want to say the name of the company before when I had a real job before a club job, 9 to 5, and they did a layoff at an institute I used to work at that did criminal justice research. I was an administrative assistant, answered phones. I worked for a lawyer as her AA, and before I got into the club business in '93. I'm 53 years old. I've been around. So this is back in my early 20s. My father got me the gig, and I was a good talker. That's what got me the gig too. Every door that opened for me is because I'm a good communicator. I'm a good talker. And I have a good kind of rap with when it comes to people. So I got a job that I really wasn't qualified for just because I was a good talker. My boss was impressed with how I spoke to her. Because the high school diploma resume wasn't enough to get that job, but I did. But
I
when we
feel
got
you.
late, but when we got laid off, I remember since I was an administrative assistant, my boss asked me and some of the other AAs to gather some employees' belongings from the mailroom and from the printing room. And we said, and I remember this is late 89, early 90. And I said to my boss, what do we put them in? Get some hefty bags from the supply room. And we,
Mm,
as young guys, said, garbage bags? They're hefty plastic bags. Where else are you going to put them in? You're going to put them in a paper bag. They're going to rip right through them. So we're like, oh, it's not like a diss. It's because we can't put them in paper bags because they'll rip. Right. We'll put them in. You know what I'm saying? Like we were
yeah,
like,
yeah.
it's not, you're not subliminally saying these people are trash.
Right.
You're saying, and I got it. I'm like, okay, got it. I said to my wife, but even when we're packing stuff up inside, we're like, why can't they come and do this? And then they said, because the policy is we don't let former employees come back in because things can happen. Okay. So again, I'm just doing my due diligence stuff. But I felt weird about the putting it in a garbage bag, even though they told me that's not a symbolic thing. But I can see how people took it as. And guess what, Jay? When we brought them down to the lobby and left them there for people were pissed in a garbage bag. And we're like, hey, we're just clerks. We're not. We were told what to do. There were no, if they were believe me, if they had Louis Vuitton bags, we would have put it in there for you.
Yep.
So we were doing the apology tour downstairs while people were like throwing like heinous looks at us. I remember going back upstairs. So I'm never doing that again. I'm never doing that again. And I told my boss, fire me. I'm not doing. I says I just felt like people took it as we're calling them trash, and she's like, that's not what it is. People see what they want to see. Where are we supposed to put them? What are we supposed to put them in? I said, how a box? We didn't have any boxes. We could have went and got boxes. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, totally.
again, even I guess I was 21, 22 at the time, even as a young guy, I'm like, I can see how people, and again, when people saw their stuff in the lobby in bags and had their names on it, when I saw Mickey James' name, Mickey on a bag, that brought back memories of me doing that when we had a big layoff at the Institute that time and about 15 people got let go. And, again, I can see where they think it's the ultimate diss. But I truly believe that some bosses do kind of get off on being shitty to people, especially if they have a not so good parting of the ways. But I also believe that sometimes the company is just not thinking about it because if they think about it too much, they can't get personally involved.
Right.
And emotion, you can't get emotionally involved. You know what I'm saying? Like when
Yeah.
Rocky One was going to beat up the guy and break his thumb for the payment for his loan shark boss. He goes, "Look, I'm not personally involved. All right." So it's
Yeah, yeah.
like again, that's the way you have to take it sometimes. I know we always want to see the worst in everybody. I get it. I feel that way myself sometimes. But sometimes companies and the reps that they send just aren't thinking about it, or they're told, don't overthink it, just do it. You
Right.
know what I'm saying? So again, WWE is evil. I got Vince McMahon is horrible, but maybe not as much as we want to think he is. And I guarantee that Vince McMahon had nothing to do with putting the stuff in the garbage bag at all, nor did he tell them to do it.
What about Bruce Pritchard though? Because Bruce Pritchard, he's got some heat with Nick Aldis. They've got heat with each other. I don't.
Mhm.
I agree with you though. Ultimately, I agree with you. I think
Right.
that this is totally overthought. And when I got fired from a job one time, and they told me pack your shit and get out, pretty much, And I
Yeah.
grabbed the first available empty box that I saw, and I said to my manager, my old manager, I said, "Hey, can I use this to pack my stuff up in?" And he goes, "Yep." I said, great. And I packed my stuff up and I was out the door. But I think, again, the overly emotional reaction, I think you made a great point, Kev, when you
Mhm.
said that a lot of these are kids that are reacting emotionally, that haven't
Yes.
been through it, that don't get it. And I'm not saying this is a problem necessarily, but from our perspective, I'm 36 years old. I've been kind of in the wrestling content creation since about 2009 ish,
Okay.
and been a fan my entire life since I was in the crib, you know. So
Sure.
born in '84. Now, what's happening now is you see a lot of these kids and they aren't even telling you who they are. Like, you don't know who you're talking to on Twitter because most of them are completely anonymous. They don't
Right.
give you, they don't have an age, they don't have a picture, they don't have anything. So there's no accountability whatsoever. They could literally say and do whatever they want
Hmm.
without getting any kind of issues against them. And that's something that I personally have a problem with. I actually just got, if anyone's listening that gives a shit, I got permanently suspended today on Twitter, which is absolutely insane. I appealed it and I literally hit them with every curse word I can imagine just to try to, you know, dig it into them a little bit, tell them exactly how I feel. But it's a crazy, it's almost like a circus environment we're living within on
Right.
social media because you never know who you're talking to or what they're capable of.
Yeah, again, I'm sorry that you got. I know it's funny. I think the last person you wrote to was me, and then you
Yeah,
got suspended, right? So
yeah,
it's
pretty
like,
much.
just so you know, I didn't rat you out or anything. You didn't say anything bad to
I
me, but
know, dude. I know.
I know you
I
didn't.
know exactly. I know exactly what I did, and we'll see if I get this appeal to go through. But I doubt
Oh
it.
yeah, I mean, I've had to go back and forth. I've had to block a few people and I put a few people on blast, but mostly again they're fake accounts and stuff. My brother John Draper, who's a podcaster, does a show called Break the Apocalypse, great show, and he used to be part of Wrestling Soup a year ago.
Yeah, I remember him. I
Then
remember
broke
him.
yeah broke away on his own. That's my real life brother, my younger
Oh,
brother
cool.
by 3 years. And he had a great thing for dealing with a troll one time who was insulting me and him. And he goes, tell you what, just admit that you're afraid of me. You're afraid of my brother. You're afraid. And since you're afraid, you have to come at me anonymously because you know the repercussions that'll happen if we find out who you are. So I'll tell you what, admit you're afraid and you can keep making fun of me and my brother and I'll entertain you. And the guy was just, I think, stumped and stopped writing to him. But my brother does that. He's like, so you're afraid. He goes, admit you're afraid, and then you can. I'll play into this whole thing. Just admit you're afraid. Say I am afraid of you. That's why I'm writing to you anonymously. I'm afraid. I'm afraid to be myself because I know that there's repercussions and ramifications that I can't deal with. That's why I'm doing this. And it's just such a like takes the air right out of the bubble of the troll. You know what I mean? Just
That's a
say
good one.
yeah,
Yeah,
say you're afraid, and you can make fun of me and my brother all day long. Just say you're afraid. Say I'm a coward, and then you can curse us out. Go ahead. And then the guy's just like, well, I don't know what to do now. So my brother's dealt with trolls pretty good, but again, I think that young people, and not to do the typical thing, because Jay, you would fall into the millennial category, obviously in age group, but obviously seems to me that you're more of an old school spirit and an old school soul than you are a victim type of blamer, or I'm a victim or blame everything, because as you know, probably by the time you're in your mid 30s, life is not fair has been a theme that you should be acclimated to.
hmm
If you weren't fired, you were unjustly broken up with, or you had a miscommunication, lost that girl that you should have never lost, or lost that friendship due to something so stupid that you just
right.
should have never happened. So I
Yep.
mean, we all go by mid 30s. You have experienced that, and if you haven't, anybody's listening saying, "Well, it never happened to me." It is going to happen to you. Not that
Right.
I want it to happen to you. It will. Maybe it'll hit you at 40. Maybe you lose that job. I've never been fired before. Well, maybe it'll happen to you at 61. You know what I mean?
hmm
You never say never because the life will come and slap you in the back of the head at a moment's notice. And it doesn't matter if you walk the line, do what I'm supposed to do the right thing. I return wallets that are on the ground. I leave the money in it, mail it back as is. I feed stray cats. You're a good guy. Yeah. And you know what's important for people to know you're a good guy? The people who are in your real life, not strangers online who don't even know your mother's first name. You know what I'm saying? I always
Yeah.
say the same thing, Jay. If a person that I'm dealing with can't name my four brothers by their first name, has to research it, don't know it off the top of your head, you're not my real friend. You know what I'm saying? And you don't know
Yep.
my mother's name. You don't know that my father's been deceased for 7 years. You don't know anything about me then. So again, too many people are into placating to strangers. Me and Mish had a conversation about this. People know too much. And as a podcaster, your job is to connect to people in a real way, but not connect to people where you here, I'm exposed. Look at me. Take me
Right.
as I am. you need to do that with people in your own life. And I have a feeling that people who over compensate online don't do that in their real life and do it online because they feel a stranger will be more fair in judging you than a person who knows you, which is weird to me, bro. It's weird to me
Yeah.
that Easy Bake Oven 69 means more to you than a guy who works with you for 18 years. That's
Uh,
fucking weird. And a psychiatrist would be like, now I got to take a seat. Someone tell me about, I'm a psychiatrist and I don't even know what's going on here with this guy or this girl. Yeah, Easy Lover 42 should not be, oh, he liked my picture. Who gives a fuck? It might not even be a dude. We don't even know who that is. You know,
exactly. Yeah.
could be someone in Rikers who has computer access. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't be a fucking sucker. You know what I'm saying? Care about
Yeah.
what your family thinks about you. Care about what your peers think about you. I care a lot more that Jason Solomonster has respect for me and will write it in a public form than some troll who hates us both and tells everybody what horrible people we are. Who doesn't know us from a hole in the wall? You know what I'm
Bingo.
saying? Because
Yep.
we said something disparaging about Chris Jericho. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Yeah.
the fuck is wrong with these people? So again, the one thing I'll never lose, I think, as far as podcasts, no matter where I go, what I do, what podcasts I do, is just being myself and giving opinions. It's not even not being not PC. It's just being real, and being real doesn't mean you have to reveal all about yourself. There's some private things. That's why it's called private.
Right. Of course. And nobody wants to have that anymore, but we absolutely need it. And hopefully, as a society, we start to get back to that. But look, dude, I would love to continue talking for an entire hour, but I want to cut this off. And I
Sure.
hope that we can actually come back and do this again because I want more of the story and I want to talk to you more, bro. I think we're having a good conversation here and I think we can dive into a lot of different topics. So I'd like to wrap this up, but I'd like to wrap this up in this one final question. And the next time we talk, we'll talk about the next chapter of Kevin Castle show of your show and how like what kind of went wrong with the Don Tony Kevin Castle
Yeah,
show and whatnot.
we
But
could do a part two if you want. Sure.
all right, that's awesome, dude. I'd love to do a part 25 at some point
Oh
because I
yeah.
don't plan on stopping this ever. You know
Oh
what I
yeah,
mean? I
no
want to
problem.
do these forever.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
we could do a series, the rise and fall and rise of Kevin Castle.
Hell yeah,
There
bro.
you go. There you
But
go.
but here's one thing I like about this channel, and I have had those podcasts where I've had a panel, and it was a radio show on like Blog Talk Radio with real shitty audio, and it was a pain in the ass to get people to call in. It was a mess, back in 2012, and I've been through a lot of those things. So there's a whole new group of young wrestling fans, and I'm not talking about the kids that we were just talking about who
Sure.
are unaccountable. I'm talking about the real youngsters that want to get ahead of the game and make a name for themselves early on and understand how to not, make mistakes that you've made that I've made. And I want you to give a little bit of advice to those kids out there and young adults that are planning on making a name for themselves and creating content and joining this wacky, wild world of wrestling that we're both kind of involved in here.
Sure. As far as doing what we do, what you do, what I do, there's different levels, and there's starting out and then developing, building foundations, and then keeping them built without them collapsing or imploding around you. Uh, which, in a way, I feel kind of happened to me, but not really. I mean, again, the split of a team or the parting ways of thing, we can get into that another time, and it's not really that much of a played out, over dramatic story. It's kind of sad in a way because it's the end of an era, and I think the fans lost out a lot more than me and my former partner did because we can go on to do other things. He's doing a solo career and been doing a solo career for a long time, and I'm now getting into new ventures myself. As a matter of fact, I got a new non-wrestling podcast starting up about everything and anything in life and about movies and TV and stuff. So I'm going to be doing different stuff, and actually next time I can come on and plug some new wrestling stuff that I'm doing too. And I always plan to take about 6 months off after the breakup of me and DT and do different things. So I'm kind of in the zone, give or take a few weeks or a month, but I'm coming back into the mainstream. But that being said, as far as anybody goes and advice for anybody who's looking to do what we do, starting out is not easy. Building an audience is not easy. I told you before, I've gone on different shows. I've gone on big shows with thousands of listeners, some with hundreds, some with maybe, if they're lucky, 20. And they're just trying to build an audience, and I know how it is, and I know, I was a little shielded from that, to be honest with you, Jay. Back in the day, I never would obsess and say to Anthony, like when we were doing the hotline, how many people called in today? You just say, oh, we got a lot of messages. We got a lot of views. And I would just leave it at that. I didn't want to know how many. And then when we got more, once we got on Rolling Stone, I was very curious about our ratings and how many people were listening to us. And when I heard how many thousands, I was like, holy shit. So again, then because you also don't want to get psyched out when you're talking, thinking, it's almost like stage fright that you get. I don't know if you've ever had that doing a
Totally, dude.
podcast,
Yep.
where you but you control, since you're your own editor, you run your own shit. You can go back and say, I wish I didn't say that, change it, stuff. You're a content creator and you're in control of your own stuff as a solo act and a solo podcaster. You're on a team sometimes, you leave a show and you're like, oh shit, I don't know if I wanted to say that.
Right.
So sometimes when you basically, that's an important thing. Kind of don't rehearse what you're going to say. Me and Don Tony and Anthony, despite where we are today, which is okay, we're in decent terms right now, but it should be better than it is, but it's okay. One thing he would admit is we didn't rehearse. We never rehearsed. Uh, he'd be like, tonight we're gonna blah 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 blah. And I'm like, yeah, cool, cool, cool. And that's, here we go, on the air. That was it. That was our prepared time, because he knew, I hope you watched Raw. I hope you, of course I did. I watch wrestling all the time. Sometimes I miss it, but I have to be sick and dying at the time. But again, we knew. He knew I watched pay-per-view. I know he did. And if we didn't, we would have gave each other a big heads up. Hey, dude, my cable went out yesterday. I didn't see the fucking pay-per-view. So
Right.
that would go on. So being prepared is great. Don't talk about something that you're not really efficient in. Don't talk about, that's like when people talk about politics, Jay, who you could tell
Hmm.
don't know a lot, and just, Republicans suck, they're all horrible, blah blah blah. Okay, what you just did was alienate half your fan base. You just ripped apart the parents of some of your listeners. You just said all, I'm just giving you an example, I'm being hypothetical, and this is important, because when you say all this, all liberals are horrible, all conservatives are horrible, hypothetical, you just ripped your audience apart. If you had 20 listeners, you insulted 10 of them. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Okay, because my dad's a Republican. He's a good guy. My father's a great man. What do you think? He was in the army. You just, oh, fuck you, man. Republicans suck. People take things to heart, and then they stop remembering. Oh yeah, I was listening about wrestling, but I got taken out of my fucking state of mind when this guy started insulting Italians or conservatives or Catholics or Jewish people. Don't go there. Keep
Mm.
it wrestling. Keep it fun. Keep it funny, keep it edgy, be passionate in your convictions, but don't act like wrestling unhinges you, that it makes you crazy, that you came on here to basically yell and scream for 2 hours. Don't do that. It might, some fans might get a kick out of you, but other fans will think there's something wrong with you, and not in a good way. You understand what I'm saying?
Totally.
Make valid points where you have people think. The best compliments I get, Jay, to this day is, Kev, you really, really made me think about something you said. I actually changed my mind on something. And I said, you said it so like matter of factly, it just struck me. So it struck a chord with me. Yelling and screaming was never Don Tony's thing. It was never my thing. I give Anthony credit too. He's very calculated and looks direct when he says things, and into the microphone and with conviction. And I try to do the same thing too. Mish does it too. And I think that's what makes us good at what we do. We're different. We have different opinions, no doubt. But the cadence in your voice, the realness that you're putting out there to people, like, I believe this guy. You know what? He's right. Roman Reigns doesn't suck. Maybe I was wrong. I love him as a heel now.
Hmm. Yeah.
Kev was pushing him all this time, and I was getting on Kev. Reigns dick rider, blah blah blah. He sucks. They should release him. I'm like, release him. The guy's a fucking star. Are you kidding? And now he's the biggest thing in wrestling. People say, Kev, do you feel justified defending him over these years? It's not even being justified. I feel bad that I actually lost fans because it was over an opinion on wrestling. You know
Crazy.
what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
you don't have to apologize to me for getting into it with me because you didn't like Roman Reigns. You don't have to like Roman Reigns, but you didn't have to insult me because I defended Roman Reigns. I'm not insulting you. You know what I'm saying? It's like, first of all, it's wrestling. Jay, it would be no different than me and you arguing about, did Robert on Everybody Loves Raymond get enough talk time than Ray did? You know what I'm
Exactly.
saying?
Yep.
Robert was just as important as Ray on that show. And we don't now, fuck you, Jay. Don't call me anymore. You would be like, we just had a falling out over Everybody Loves Raymond. Like, what the fuck? I'm 36, he's 51. What the fuck are we doing here? Because no one stops and wants to feel the cringe that they should feel of having a dispute over wrestling. So don't fight with your audience. It's good. Listen, someone even said to me, a shout out to Armor Thrash, who's I don't know his real name, but he's a Thrash fan, so I respect. I'm a big thrash metal guy. So we go back and forth with the Cubs and the Mets. And he even said, Kev, we're going to go at it for the next couple of days, but we're still friends. And after this, I'm a fan of yours again. After the Cubs and Mets finish their series, cool. I said, cool. So we make
Oh,
fun of
yeah.
each other, and we're like, we're still cool, right? I'm like, yeah, that's the best thing, and I'm like that with my fans. But when someone gets unhinged and fuck you and fuck your show, I hope you die. I've had death with the DT. Dante's been wished death on over wrestling stuff. It's sick, dude. And again, that's the other thing for the people who do podcasts. Don't get we've all fallen into the trap. You say right now, Jay, you're battling too to get yourself even back your account back. Thank
Hmm.
God you have another way to get through there through a show, but your individual account because maybe emotions, you said something, rub someone the wrong way, someone who might be a hater of your show. I don't know all the dynamics and details, but usually that's what leads to someone getting their account suspended is that somebody else wants to see that happen to you because of something you said, right?
100%.
Okay. You can't make everybody happy, but I think, the personal insults, leave it out. Insulting a wrestler, making fun of Natty's non-reaction when she comes out is no reason to try to dock somebody. It's wrestling, ladies and gentlemen. It's supposed to be fun. It's entertainment, and it's not that it's fake. It's not real, meaning it's not based in reality. It's based in storyline. Her, trying to fuck up someone's accounts, doxing, that shit's real, and that if that is real life ramifications. Keep it wrestling, keep it in fantasy world, just like you play Dungeons and Dragons. You're not going to literally come out and stab somebody with a sword. I mean, while you're playing the board game, take a sword out and cut somebody's head off. I mean, I think exactly. I think people and because people will say, well, there's a lot of mental defectives who listen to wrestling. Wrestling, this is why I don't like wrestling. It caters to a low denominator of intelligence. And I'm like, no, not true. There's good and bad people in that. Listen, I have sat in the stands in baseball games with some of the most fucking obnoxious, insufferable fans. And I can't even imagine when they go home to their families, how the families don't fucking lock them out because they're so obnoxious at the game. And I'm like, yeah, I've never been like that. And some people like to be obnoxious and be a dick. But again, you can have a podcast and you can interact with your fans and have disagreements and discourse without taking it personally. But I understand when someone comes at you, and I've done it myself. I always have a policy on my Twitter. If someone says something about my family or personal dig, something real low class, they got to go because it's not going to get better from there. Do you understand
Right.
what I'm saying?
Yeah. 100%.
Kev, you suck. Roman Reigns sucks. You ain't gonna get blocked for that. But Kev, I hope you die. You're gonna get blocked. Hope I die. There's no coming back from that.
Right. Yeah.
No, wish something bad on your family. Why? What did my family do to you? You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
Again, there's certain things. There's a reason why they created these things. But podcasters, I think, I'm not going to tell you the whole tougher skin, Jay, because I'll tell you right now, nobody N with a capital N, nobody has thick skin in podcasting. Nobody. I've seen everybody lose it on their show. I've been on live chats when I'm not name names, but some of the biggest podcasters have flipped out on a live chat, threatened to shut their show down because chat room was out of control. I've seen it. I've
Seen it.
been
I've seen it. Yeah.
yeah, I've seen it with the guys who are the big money makers in this business too. Guys who make fucking bank, who
Yep.
flipped out because they had enough. Because again, it is getting too real now. We're having fun, and someone had to say something really heinous, and it rubbed someone. It got to you. So I think when you're up and coming in podcasting, know that. But there's features to block people, and always have a moderator in your chat that you trust who can filter out the bullshit. Building an audience is the hardest thing. The haters are a small part of it, but building an audience and fans is the hardest thing. But I'll say this, and you know this too, Jay. Once you get fans on board with you, they're on board with you, and you'll have people who do their best to help you spread the word. I could tell you, I got most of my fan base through word of mouth of others who are fans of mine who
It's
got
the way to do it. Yeah.
yeah, I turned my friend on to you, Kev. He grew up in the area you grew up in Brooklyn. Actually, I think he knows one of your brothers. Like, there's always some connection to something where someone say, "Hey, dude, I put you on at work with some of my guys who work in a restaurant with me. They love it. They're fans now." And I'm like, "Oh, thanks. I appreciate that." So, word of mouth helps too. YouTube is a good thing. I mean, to a degree. I'm not big on YouTube shows. That's why I didn't want to make the jump over. And we could talk about that next time. There was some differences of opinion, which really ultimately led to the split. And then there were other things, but it was differences of direction.
Hmm.
I'm a radio guy. I'm not looking to do a TV show. You know what I'm saying? When I
Gotcha.
want to do a
Yeah.
TV show, I'll do a TV show. I like old school radio. I'm influenced by my uncle, who was a radio broadcaster for major radio stations. I love the art of radio and the art of talk radio. And that's why Jim Cornette and Brian Last, by the way, never do video podcasts, are one of the number one podcasts in the community. You know that.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally.
Cornette and Brian Last do huge numbers, not one fucking video show. And Jim Cornette says, and you're never going to see it. And Brian Last said he'd rather cancel the show than do a video show. He's radio. That's what the show is. Don't like it? Too bad. Radio will never go out of style. Radio will never go out of style. Video shows are good. Don't get me wrong. I'm not putting anybody down who wants to do them. But I find that you're not entertaining people by sitting there and looking into a mic. You capture more attention with how you talk and keep people's interest. And also remember, Jay, sometimes people are in motion when they're listening to your show. They can't stay there and look at you on screen
True.
the whole
Yeah.
time. People tell me I work out listening to you, Kev. I do fucking power walks. I do this. I'm on my way to work. I'm on the subway. I really can't sit there and stare into a screen. So I listen. I listen, and that's why I told the new show I'm doing with Baseball Chicky, who's kind of a Twitter celebrity in her own right. She's got a huge social media presence. I'm doing a new show with her called Castle and Chicky's Podcast Adventure, kind of a takeoff on Bill and Ted and Pee Wee's Big Adventure. We do pop culture. I'm going to be talking about movies and styles and fashion and throwbacks. And it starts in about a week. I'll give you a link. You can check it out. People can check it out online. And this is and this plays into your question too. I know it's an elongated answer, but it's building foundations. I have a name in podcasting, but guess what? I have a name in wrestling podcasting. This is a new venture for me. And Chicky, though she's a Twitter celeb, as they say, a social media celeb, first podcast ever. We could do big numbers out of the gate, or we could do a few dozen people from jump and have to build from there. No expectations. We're going to do it for fun. And if it's a hit, great. If not, we're doing it for ourselves. We're not doing it to make money. So again, I'm starting new in a way again too. Wrestling is different for me because I'm established in this community,
Right.
and I
Yeah.
and I'm privileged to have fans and a good fan count and a good fan base, and I work for it since 2003. It's not like I didn't. But the new venture, again, I'm just like anybody right now. Hey, I'm starting a new podcast. Me too. You know what I'm saying? I have a little bit
Hmm.
of a leg up. I do have a leg up because I have notoriety, but not in the field that I'm going into. It's like a baseball announcer now calling hockey. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Yeah.
I hope I do okay. And that's why I even told my partner, Chicky, no expectations. Let's just do this. And she goes, oh, I think it's going to be great. If it's not, though, it'll still be great because if we're enjoying it, it's great. Let's not worry about the numbers. Don't look at counts. We'll keep an eye on it, but let's not be obsessed with it. And then I got news for you. Then we'll build something. If we obsess over numbers and we're not almost like Jay, the ratings, NXT did down a thousand, down 4,000 people. Man, did you enjoy the show? Yeah, I liked it. Then don't fucking worry about that.
Exactly. Yep.
Then don't worry about that. And that's what I'm telling my new partner, who again has big expectations because she's got a big social media presence. Will they follow us over to a podcast? I don't know. And if they don't, even if we're having fun, it don't matter. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not our job, it's our hobby that can turn into a job if it becomes successful. So do it as a hobby. And hobby, don't take that as a bad word. Hobby is a good thing. Having healthy hobbies is good to keep your brain sharp, keep you less stressed, and something to look forward to. Hobbies are a good thing. Some people take hobbies as dismissed, that it's not about my hobby. No, hobbies are good, especially if you could turn a hobby. Listen, Jay, too, some people have turned hobbies into big business adventures, and have turned hobbies into $1 million industries. So again, do something. If you're a wrestling fan and you're hearing this, you want to start a podcast, know that yes, there's a ton of competition, but what can separate you is A, knowing your shit. B, that you get along with a lot of people, you're inclusive. Don't go so political or so polarizing that you off the bat insult half your audience because they don't think like you. Unless you give a disclaimer, some things I'm going to say here might offend people, but it's not personal. It's just my views. Please don't take it personally. Again, be inclusive and the one common denominator that has to be when you start a wrestling podcast is one thing: you have to be a wrestling fan. That's it.
There you go.
I don't. Why else listening to a wrestling podcast if you're not into wrestling? But I will say this, Jay, in closing. I have more people who listen to my podcast or listen to me on wrestling podcasts who don't watch wrestling anymore. And I found that odd. And they say, yeah, I just like hearing your old stories, Kevin. Honestly, when you recap it, I feel like I watched it. So I'm like, oh, okay. That's the ultimate compliment. I mean, I think half the people I'll play to tonight, so to speak, on KNT Chronicles that I do for DTKC. And I'm still in sort of a business with DT as a side thing because we're both pretty smart and we know we can utilize each other's talents there. So me and Don Tony still do a Patreon together that we share along with Mitch from Wrestling Soup. And I do a show called Castle Chronicles, as you mentioned. It's for a limited audience because it's on a private server. $2 will get you there. It's not some big money gain or anything. It's just $2 thing. But it's if you love the show, you'll find it more than worth it to join our Patreon for $2. And I do Castle Chronicles every Thursday, and every other Thursday I do a thing called KNT Chronicles with Lady Trez, my female co-host. And as you see a theme, I'm doing a thing now where I have a lot of female co-hosts. My new venture is with a female co-host. I get along pretty good with women. I get along with men too, but I think even Mitch says, I think your thing is to have women partners from that one. I'm like, yeah, I think you're right. And I'm going to be doing that with Trez, and Trez is on Twitter. You can find her at Dark Temptress on Twitter. You could find me if you allow me to plug my Twitter. It's
Definitely.
Kev, Kev, Z as in Zorro, Castle. Kev Z Castle, because there's a lot of real life people from Ireland named Kevin Castle. So I had to be Kev Z Castle. Yeah, Kev Castle is a real name around the world. It's amazing how many Kevin Castles there are. A legit name. So you can't copyright that name. So I'm Kev Z Castle. So you can find me on Twitter. And you see me, Jay. Most of my posts are humor based and making fun of myself or making fun of wrestling, but not making fun of the fans. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Yeah, dude. Yeah, this was absolutely great episode of PWP Nation's World of Wrestling. Kevin Castle, that was absolute education for anybody who's looking to get into the game that you have been. Let's just put it, I'm not going to let you be modest because you're a modest guy. You're a nice guy. You've been to the top of the mountain of this wrestling podcast game. Rolling Stone, you're in there right next to Steve Austin and Chris Jericho. That is an absolutely unbelievable accomplishment that nobody can take away from you. And I love the fact that you're diversifying and continuing on with your brand, dude. It is awesome. This was such a great story. Thanks so much for joining me tonight, my friend. I appreciate it.
Oh no, thank you, Jamin. I appreciate it too, and I'll come back anytime you have me. As a matter of fact, like I said, anytime you want me to come back, I'll be more than happy to. Just give me a couple of days heads up, and I'll clear the schedule. I'll make time for you. I appreciate you giving me a platform to speak, and I hope anybody who listens to this, even if, like I said, it affects a few people or it means something to a few people, that's good for me, man. And again, inclusiveness. And remember, we're all wrestling. We can be different, but we're all wrestling fans. We all, even if we have a love-hate relationship with it, we all come back to it because it means something to us. Even if it's just past tense and you like the old days, that's fine. But it's all wrestling related.
At the end of the day, that's what brings us together. Kev,
That's
thank you
it,
so
man.
much, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening, guys. Here, if you haven't hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, support us here at PWP Nation. We do appreciate it. Kevin Castle, thank you so much once again. We're out of here. We'll talk to you next week. Peace.